Have a story to tell? I believe you. Ghost, cryptids, the unknown. Let's talk about it. This is My GhostCast. GhostCast fans, welcome to episode 6. In this episode, we have the last two stories from the Lamb's interview. Demons from the past and the Growls. I don't want to spoil anything, but oh yeah. Now, chow ass down and enjoy. Hey guys, welcome back to My GhostCast. I'm your host, Therese Gonzalez. I have my mini host, also known as Lydia Santiago Montecito Horta Tachala. And our guests are David and Laura, Corpus Christi's Ed and Lorraine. We're back. They got a story. All right, let's begin. David, Laura.
All right. Okay, so we have this past of supernatural experiences, paranormal, faith. So I went to a lot of churches. You know, my dad that stepped in to become my dad, and he did a great job. I mean, who can raise someone else's kid, right? And I respect him a lot and love him a lot. He took on a really big role. He did a good job. I mean, he took care of me. He gave me food and raised me with some morals and things like that. And so he was what you would call a backsliding Christian when I met him. So in other words, he was a Christian that was not walking with God at the time. So he would like literally drink a up and got a little buzz going on. Then he started telling me about Jesus, you know. So it's like, oh yeah, we have our internet thing messed up. So he'd be buzzing, and then he'd like start giving me the whole gospel message. And what was really cool about that was I was able to make the connection of what I already experienced as a kid, you know, and then connected to, oh, so now it makes sense. This is who God is, and so on and so forth. And so we went to many different types of churches, primarily Protestant churches. Didn't really do Catholicism. It was mainly Protestant churches. And I would just see things with all of them. You know, I mean, the kids in the Baptist churches were bullied for some reason. I don't know why, but I was always bullied. And so there was no peace. It was just ugliness. And then when we went from Baptist to becoming Pentecostal, and in those churches, not all of them, I'm not downing any particular church, guys,
Of course.
so you know.
Yeah.
But in those churches, it was always like about money, and if you were sick, it's because you're in sin and all this stuff, and it was just really terrible. The worst experience that I had with that was my mom had colon cancer, and they had the audacity to say, oh, well, it's because you're a sinner, that's why. You know, and it's just crazy. You just don't do stuff like that. That's what made me just cannot stand it. Because and the more that I went to these different types of churches, the more I realized, man, this is just not right. You know, this is nothing compared to what I grew up knowing and learning about. I mean, and through my own experiences with God, this isn't the God that I know, right? But yet the Bible is different. The Bible gives you a lot more hope. Anyway, so my dad, I pretty much had enough of these churches, and I was like 18 years old, and my dad said, look, once you're 18, you can stop going to church, but you got to move out of the house, and, you know, but as long as you live under our roof, you go to church with us. And I just had enough, and of course, it was my excuse to, all right, I'm out, you know, so I went out there, and I partied, and not really party, but I just lived a life without God. And so I lived about 7 years without God, just doing it all, drugs and relationships and, just broken homes. And it was just crazy. And I met my wife at the end of those 7 years without God. And we did that together. We were doing that lifestyle of just being selfish and so it came to a boiling point. It came to a head in my life. The last 7 years I lived like opposed to God, came to a head, and I went down to this really horrible experience I put upon myself. So some things went down, and well, I might as well just tell you, I attempted suicide, and it was just because everything was just piled up on me, and I've kind of reaped the whirlwind. I sowed to the wind, like the Bible said, but I reaped the whirlwind, and it wasn't a cry for help. It was a full-on, I'm going to kill myself, and I went through it. My wife and I were at a hotel. We got in a horrible fight.
This is the beginning of our marriage.
The very beginning of our marriage, yeah, like within a month into our marriage. Wow. And we're celebrating a month anniversary of our marriage when we went to this hotel room.
Yeah, and mind you, like my part was when I had prayed to God to send me somebody that believed in him, not just a higher power, but him. Excuse me. So my thing was I left my baggage, not knowing why. God prepared me for someone, not knowing why. So as he gets into this story, it was totally God giving me the strength to do what I had to do next.
And so I basically took down a whole bottle of pills. It was muscle relaxers. I was in a little fender bender at work, and I slammed it down with vodka. And so, and then I was fading out. And I went into the bathroom of the hotel room, and I laid my big body against the door so no one could come in, and I started fading out. She picked up on what I did. She busted the door open with all her little strength, and she pretty much rescued me. She called 911. I remember them doing the Narcan and all that kind of stuff and bringing me back.
I had called 911. I couldn't get the door open, so I knew, because I used to be an EMT. So I knew the golden hour. You only allow a certain amount of time before. I didn't know what was happening then. So I called 911, went back to him. I knew they were coming, and I was like, I'm getting this door open. And God, I'm 5 foot. My husband's 6'1". And I got that door. He was right by it. I just full on with my body just got that door open. And by the time I got that door open, the ambulance was there.
I didn't want to live. And for a long time, I struggled with suicidal thoughts. Like it started with that uncle I told you about, and the weird connection, how I knew that he was dead. And I thought suicide was just a typical thing. And all my life, I've had people in my life that have died from that. And that's just one thing that's very, very important to me. And it's a serious subject in my life. And so,
and I think that part of this is growing up. You know how we're talking about how things follow you, oppression. Evil comes in different forms. It's not just scary stuff or dark. It comes in different forms, and the devil knows your weaknesses, and he can mess with your head as a playground. And he did that with David a lot of the times, to where I had to pray. There was one moment I had to pray, "Get behind me, Satan," to where this is not going to happen anymore. You pray the power of God. And this is, we don't just believe in evil, we believe more so in good. That God has the power to rebuke. Because even the demons know his name, and they...
It is a different way of thinking. You're right.
Yes. So when God put us together, not only was I praying for someone to believe in him, but he opened the door to, it was supposed to be a simple Bible study. I know I'm going a little ahead, but he believed in God, and once God put us together and God helped him and removed that oppression, then there was so much more. Like evil was just, man, it reared up its ugly head.
This suicide attempt, or whatever you want to call it, it opened that door for God. So this is how it went down. So after the paramedics revived me, went to the hospital, all that, of course they run that mental health or mental check on you, and they're like, do you believe in aliens? Do you believe in this? Do you believe in that? And I knew what they wanted. I knew what they wanted to hear. You know, I was like, no. And even though I did, but I'm like, no, because I didn't want to be there, you know. And so I literally went back to work. Work had no idea what happens. And I went back to work. And when I was going back to work, I was flipping through the radio station, and I landed on a Christian station in Corpus Christi where they were doing nothing but preaching the Bible. Teaching the Bible, that was it. And I hated church, and I hated God, you know, or I thought I did because of everything that they did to my mom. And I was so angry with the way my life turned out. And so I remember like arguing with those ministers. I was like, whatever, I'm just waiting for you to ask for money. And I'm just waiting for you to tell me that, you know, all these people go to hell. And I'm just waiting for you. And they would never do it, like, ever. All they kept talking about was love. And I was like, wait a minute, this guy's not even worth arguing with. But then I would tune into him every day and hear what he had to say. And all that just sparked and opened up that feeling I had as a kid, you know, when I was talking to God. And so I went from like arguing with what I heard on the radio to like letting it break me. So speaking of supernatural, this is how it went down. This is how I went back to faith. This is pretty crazy. Out of all the things we've heard, you know, we're about to play an audio clip here in a little while. The little picture of the little all that stuff. But this is the most powerful thing ever. So I was listening to that radio station about 2 weeks now. I'm driving to Sinton, Texas, because my route, I worked for a company as a courier, a medical courier, and I would go and do this route from Portland, Sinton, back up to Rockport, come back to Randus Pass and Ingleside. I would do this circle every day, listening to this radio station. And I get to Sinton, and I'm listening to the program, and I get to this back road between, it's 188, between Sinton and Rockport.
Yeah.
I'm driving that back road, and I'm listening, and the preacher's on the radio talking about Jesus and how he was crucified on when his crucifixion, how they stuck the spear in his side, they put the thorns in his head, they beat him, they punched him, they blindfolded him, they spit on him, they cussed at him, they mocked him. And I'm like listening to this, and it's really disturbing me, right? It's making me very upset. And then finally, he gets to the point where they get these giant hammers, you know, these huge like Thor, mallets, and they're getting ready to break his legs. I'm like, break his legs? I mean, haven't they put him through enough, right? And then they break the legs of the thief on the right side. They break the legs of the thief on the left. And they're about to break Jesus's legs. I'm like, all right, leave him alone, man. What else do y'all want from him, right? And then I couldn't take it anymore. I shut off the radio, and it was quiet, and all you hear is the road. No one else is out there. And it's daylight. I mean, it's like 3, 4 in the afternoon. And I'm thinking, and I started to talk to him like I did when I was a kid. And I was like, if it's true what these guys are talking about on the radio, if it's true, this whole thing about love, and you did this for love, and because you love us, and you don't care what we've done, I go, I don't get it, man. I said, I don't get it. I lived the last 7 years of my life like this. I've done this. I've done this. I messed up my life. I ended up, hurting another relationship. Barely got into it, and I'm already hurting this person. What? Why did you do this for? Like, why? Why? I don't get it. Therese, the most supernatural thing happened. And this is why I stand up for what I believe. As much as you could be sitting right next to me, I heard a voice. And the voice said, because I love you. Mm-hmm. Loud and audible, because I love you, I did it all on the cross. I heard who I really believed with all my heart was Jesus. And he told me he did it all because he loved me. And that so started this whole walk in faith. Yeah. And then I responded back with, okay, then what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Well, I want to do this. I want to do exactly this. I want to live for you, and so on and so forth. So he said, read my word. And then I started to read his word. And then I came upon this chapter that reminded me of my life. It's when, Peter had denied Jesus 3 times when he was being arrested and beat up and stuff.
Right.
And so when Jesus comes back in the resurrection, they're having, they're eating fish by the sea. And then Jesus asks Peter 3 times, do you love me? Peter denied 3 times. Jesus had to ask him 3 times, do you love me? And then every time that Peter would say, yes, Lord, I do, he would tell him, go and feed my sheep, go tend to my sheep, and tend to my lambs, right? Those 3 responses. And when he goes, that's what you need to do, David. And I said, what is that? You need to feed my sheep, you need to tend to my sheep, and you need to tend to my little lambs. In other words, I'm calling you to be a pastor and a minister.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you crazy? I hate church. I don't want to be a minister, right? I was like, I don't want this. This isn't what I want.
And what I prayed for, I was like, oh, pastor, what? I don't like that title.
So I come home in faith. And when I come home in faith, I think evil and the devil was so mad.
Yes.
Because he had me this close to snuff me out from the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And he got so pissed that I chose to go on the good side. And not only that, but work for God. He's just like, seriously? So then he rears up his ugly face in our house.
Bad.
He showed up in our house, like, seriously. And you can start with that story.
That's right. Okay, so now we get into the dark side again.
Oh,
So I was so thankful and blessed that David was changing, but I wasn't there yet. I didn't understand because I was brought up in Catholicism, and you just don't talk about stuff like that. But I encountered it so many times, and
exactly. You and I talked about that.
yes,
Raised Catholic, and I'm like, you don't talk about that, or you.
yeah.
Like, it's right here. I made the example was that, like, it doesn't exist. Just ignore it. I'm like, how can I know if he's right there staring? Okay, I'm ignoring you.
I know. You're there,
like,
but I'm
okay.
ignoring. Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Because it's one of those things, when I was telling you, he came, when I met him, he was in Pentecostal and I was Catholicism, and their name and claim it, you don't speak it. So we need to meet in the middle, because it's reality. So when we moved into another little house, it was not a big house.
Very small, smaller than this area.
Yeah, I mean, it was tiny. It was like a big square.
Man.
It's not like Amityville house. This is tiny. No upstairs, nothing. So we finally get out of my parents' house. We just we only knew each other 3 months and got married. And I have a daughter from a previous relationship that he became a good stepfather for too. So we get to this house, and in this house there's tile that you step on it.
It's stick on, peel and stick. Right,
yeah.
cheap.
You walk on it, you can hear it.
Yeah.
It makes it's not really on there.
Yeah.
So we got a poodle, a toy, like a black poodle, real sweet. So we had our room by the front, and then our daughter's room was next to us, and then there was another room that we made to a living room, and then there was the bathroom and the kitchen. Just picture a big square. That's it. Just a big square with little rooms. So David's at work, and I'm sitting on the sectional, and the poodle is at the edge of the sectional, and I'm watching TV, and the poodle starts to growl. And he's growling towards the kitchen bathroom, because the bathroom's right next to the kitchen. There's a little hallway. And and the dog's name is Curly. I'm like, Curly, calm down. It's okay. So Curly starts off with a little, very little, And, but then I start to sense something, like something's up. And you can hear in the hallway, like somebody's walking in the hallway. Because the tile.
Right. You mentioned that.
Yes. So Curly gets more anxious. The noises get louder. Curly starts to just full on bark to where, okay, I got to get up and see what's going on. I get up thinking it's my oldest, my daughter, who was walking, but why would he growl? Yeah. So I get up and I go to her room. She's asleep. Nobody's there. So that was one episode. That's just a little bit in that house. Another one, we had someone over at the house, and the little boy thought my oldest was coming from the restroom. He saw her, but it wasn't her, go from the restroom to her room, but she was outside, yeah. And she goes,
There's a doppelganger.
I saw it. How did you get over here? I just saw you go to your room, but it wasn't her. It was mimicking her. And so we get up to now the darker, where when David started walking with the Lord, and I'm a baby basically. We would get huge frights. I mean, huge fright, stress, like horrible. And he had locked the door to the bedroom. I stayed up with my daughter, and she had eaten Long John Silver's, and I was mad at him. I stayed with her, and all of a sudden she was getting sick. So I take her to the bathroom. She started throwing up. In the bathroom, we had this red. Remember I told you color red?
Yeah.
The red pony.
The red pony.
Yeah.
Well, we had this red those lanterns, paper lanterns.
Yeah.
I had used it as for the
nightlight kind of thing.
Yeah, like a nightlight to put on but it glowed red.
Nice.
So she was choking, and being an EMT, I saw the chunks that were coming out big. So one got lodged in her throat. She was starting to choke. She couldn't breathe. So I left her real quick. I ran to David, and I busted open the door for him to call 911 because it was lodged in her throat. No air was coming out. She was about to, right there. And it was dark, Trez. Like, not only was I trying to fight for her, I just felt like this darkness, evil in the house at the same time. And I'm doing the Heimlich maneuver, and I'm like, gosh, I'm trained for this. This is my child. And I remember praying to God. It's like, God, I don't want her to go like this, not like this. But at the same time, there was evil in the house, like trying to take her. And so I'm doing the Heimlich maneuver, and I finally got it out of her. She was already about to pass out, that she just kind of went limp on the floor, but I knew she was breathing. But at that time, David ran in, and I can let him tell you his part, what he saw in his mind. So this is a little house. This house was dark. This house was evil. Like, the dog sensed it, I sensed it, and it tried to take life. I said her name, but her life. Yeah, edit that.
You edit all the names.
Yeah, but it tried to take her life. That moment, I just felt that the evil was there. So he comes in.
So my part was, this is all connected. Yeah. Remember the story she said, red pony? Red pony. Remember what I said when I saw when I was 3? This glow?
Yeah.
And then I saw that black demon hold my mom? Well, get this. So we fought, and I locked myself in the bedroom. She had to bust the lock open, remember? So I was in bed. And so I experienced this side. I experienced that she busts the door open and says, call 911. Our daughter's choking. And so when I ran around the corner to kind of help and see what's going on, I ran to the restroom. I see her giving our daughter the Heimlich maneuver. And behind her, I see that same black demon that I saw when I was 3 years old, with its wings and its arms choking the little girl. Exact same one, and the red glow of the same room. Pretty crazy. And in my dream, I lift up my fists to hit him, and then I wake up because she's really busting the door down in real life. Same situation. It's like I just had like a deja vu dream experience or a premonition. And this time I'm running to the restroom with my fist in the air, expecting to see this demon, but of course I didn't see it with my natural eyes. Right. And I did see when the chunks came out and the little girl went on the floor. And I remember praying too at that moment, saying, God, please, Jesus, help her, And so we both prayed at the same time. But I think that same demon that I saw as a child manifested again and is probably my personal demon, probably the one that hits me up with depression and everything else bad in my life. It's pretty crazy. So that was our experience when we decided to turn to faith, but then...
It still wasn't over yet.
Yeah, but it's a lot. There's a lot we can tell you.
It literally made its presence physically. Yeah. I saw it.
Oh yeah, that part. Oh, you can tell
Yeah.
that part.
So
All right, hold on real quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to a quick break.
Okay.
We're going to go to a quick break. That way we can, get the audience ready for the last act.
That segment. Yeah.
yeah.
Again, guys, thanks you for listening so far. This is Therese with GhostCast. My hopscotch over here, Lydia with Horta Tortilla. And our guest today is David and Laura. We'll be right back. Stay tuned, guys.
Awesome.
Hi. Hi. Welcome back to My GhostCast. Again, your host, Therese Gonzalez. Signature host here is a Ortilla Tortita, Lydia. We have our guest. We're doing our last segment with David and Laura, Corpus Christi's Ed and Lorraine. All right, guys, welcome back.
We're gonna be back.
Yes.
All right, this is going to be the scariest part. Oh, crap. All right, here we go.
Yeah. This is a good one.
Okay. So, same house, and we were laying down together at night, and like Laura was explaining earlier, the house is a big square.
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine a cross in the middle. The back of the house is up here on top, the front of the house down here. So in the square, you had the kitchen, like the Brady Bunch. Then you had our room, and right next to our room was our daughter's room. And then the next room above that was the living area, and then the kitchen, the bathroom was right between the kitchen and that living area. One big square, and the doors all connected like this. Yeah. It was like we can literally go all over the house going through everyone's room. So here we were, and the door my wife busted down was right here. So
Doorbuster.
We're the doorbuster. So we're laying down and we're asleep. So we experience now what it's called sleep paralysis.
Convenient. Convenient.
For one person, I've heard one person experience it. We both experienced it at the same time, and we both experienced the same thing and saw the same thing. Okay?
Would that be sleep paralysis?
Maybe.
The plural
right?
version? No. The
plural version.
Paralysis.
So I'll tell my part first, because my part wasn't as scary as her part, but we experienced the same thing. Yeah. Okay. So on my part, I wake up because I feel our bed go down. I feel like someone is sitting on our bed, and I'm thinking that it's our oldest daughter coming to get her mom, because she did have a tendency to sleepwalk sometimes, or wake up in the middle of the night just to wake up her mom to come and take her to bed. So I had my hand like this, my arm, and she was laying on my arm. And so I feel the bed move where my hand goes down, and that's what got my attention. But when I tried to wake up, I couldn't. I felt like if someone, I've been on morphine before because of my knees. I've had knee operations. So I felt like I was on morphine. I felt like very like just lethargic. And I tried my hardest to have energy and open my eye. And when I opened my eyes to look to see what was compressing the bed, nothing was there. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And then I kind of just rolled my eyes and went back to sleep. Well, then I wake up because she's like right here in my face, terrified. And she's like, don't say a word, don't move, don't do anything, just please just stay right there. And I was like, what? What's wrong? She was, shh. And she was so freaked out. She didn't want me to talk. Nothing. She didn't want she didn't want nothing to happen. She was like so terrified. So, and by this time the dawn is just happening, and the light, the sun outside is barely coming in. And so then we fall back asleep. And then when I wake up, she tells me what happens. And this is what happened on her part.
So my part, my end, it's kind of like how I was when I was a child. So I'm asleep and I'm on my side and I'm on David's arm, and I felt the bed sink in, and I think it's my kid sitting on the bed waking me up. So I'm feeling the same way he is, kind of like a heavy, lethargic kind of like sleep. And I open my eyes and I'm like, what's wrong? But before I could finish what was wrong, it was like, like I said, I don't get scared easy unless it's real or a horrible dream, like a visit from the enemy. But this was another real thing. It was like this dark shadow on the side of my bed, and I'm leaning on my side. So when I open my eyes, I see the dark shadow, and it's looking straight at me, kind of like hovering. And right the seconds, I just remember pulling back, telling David, wake up, wake up, wake up. And he's talking. I'm petrified. And I'm like, don't talk, turn on the light, turn on the light. But him to talk, his deep voice terrified me. That's how scared I was. I didn't want him to speak. I just wanted him to get up, turn on the light. Something was in the room with us. And it was like right on the side of my bed, like sitting down, hovering over me, looking down at me. And I just I freaked out. I couldn't believe it, but I believed it. And in my head, we were just new believers. I was a baby believer. And I'm like, stop already. Well, come to find out, and I think at that time my grandmother had passed away, and my dad had given me and my sister little things of her, like whatever he got from her. She didn't have much. I had a throw blanket of hers. So I think at the time I had the throw blanket, and we were new believers, and we were fighting, darkness. And I remember my dad, that we had moved into another place, but my dad says, that blanket I gave you? Because my dad had found out something was happening with him and someone else. He told me, throw away the blanket, throw away grandma's blanket, throw it away now. And it didn't make sense to me then, but when I put two and two together, grandma was into black magic, and it made its appearance literally. I mean, it was a black silhouette. Didn't have a face this time, but I knew it was looking at me. I knew it was watching me. It made an indentation. You can feel it. And I thought it was my kid, and no, it wasn't. And I think from there on, I learned to be stronger in the Lord, because I was like, you know what? No more. I'm done with you. And so I think when we moved from that house, David found another house, and it followed us. It turned on one of our kids' toys. I was by myself in the hallway, kind of like a poltergeist moment, out of the blue. And I remember at that moment, I said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. Not here. I'm done with you. And I had this boldness and confidence. Like, you're not going to scare me anymore. Mm-hmm. You can play me all you want, but I'm done. And from there on, as we come to more stories, it calmed down. And when it does, I'm not afraid, because he who is in me, is greater
than he is in the world.
And it hasn't, in future stories, you'll know that it keeps whatever, but that was the beginning of our marriage and our relationship, how it just really taunted us.
Yeah. And I think that's a good way to, I guess the bottom line of this time is to say that like how she said, and like how you say, Threads, you know, we believe you because we went through it all. So when people have their stories to tell and they reach out to us and ask us for help, we're here for them because we believe them, you know, and it's through the experiences we've had. So that's what we're all about, trying to help people.
Yep.
Oh,
That's
no,
our story.
that makes
It's just the beginning.
And I said there's a way that we'll get your contact information to be able to put up if people, you guys out there in the audience, you know, you're happy to be in Corpus or around the area or maybe out further away, you know, we have a way to contact these guys. These guys are good friends of mine. They got a lot of stories. They brought a lot of evidence, but we're not going to show everything this time. We got to expand it out because, to be honest with you, I could do this all day. I really can, but you know,
we gotta eat.
But at some point we got to eat. And they had a couple of things we want to share with you guys. They were going to share with you guys. They scare the crap out of us. But this will be you know, Dave, you guys.
Okay, so you want it for this one? Okay. So I'm going to share with you a sound bite first. This is this is a one of my very first preachings as a pastor, and so my producer at the time, he was recording me to put me on the radio. I did have a radio program for a while, a few years, and he was recording, and so he would edit my messages. And he didn't believe in demons, even though he was a Christian man, and so on and so forth. He was actually a chief in the Navy when the Navy was here in town.
Real quick question: How do you? It doesn't make sense to me. It's like I believe in addition, but not subtraction.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of Christians out there that don't believe in demons and things. Kind of like what Laura was saying earlier.
Yeah.
And so he didn't believe in any of that stuff. He just, you know, he was just religious. You know, he grew up a certain denomination, and that's what he stuck to until he came to our church. So one day he walks in with a laptop, and he's holding it, and he's shaking, and he's white as a ghost. And he says, "You need to hear this."
Yeah.
And he pushes play, and this is what he shows me.
You taste it for yourself. You have to taste the Lord for yourself. You have to allow the Lord to come into your heart.
Right? So that was one thing.
Woo! I'm all like.
So was he editing your, or was he was just playing back your sermon to you? Do y'all tape them? Or?
Yeah, we would. What I had was a voice recorder. It was a digital voice recorder with the lapel. The lapel was right here.
Yeah.
So you hear how close that growl was. It literally like was in my face. You know, like, hey, I don't like what you're saying. You know, don't be talking about God. You know, that's the thing that I got out of it.
You were saying you can taste him, and it was like the devil was saying, "Oh yeah, I want to bite him." You know, attack him.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Yeah,
because the context of that was I was teaching through Psalm 34 in the verses chapter 8, verse 8, where he says, "You gotta taste," or it says, "Taste and see that the Lord is good." And the point that I was making was I can't taste them like I just told you. My experience in between Rockport and Sinton, I can't make anyone feel that but me,
right?
Because I went through it.
Right.
I can't tell you this is what you must do. No, this is what I needed. I go, you got to experience God for yourself. And that's why I said, you got to taste and see that the Lord is good. So you have to taste him and experience him. And then you hear, and that the Lord is good. And it's like, so it was like totally mad, you know, talking about that kind of stuff. And that little church, we'll have one segment just based on that chapel alone, because we experienced things there. Our worship leader saw things there. I mean, a lot of people experienced some things. One guy was a guest. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just for the audience, if you can play the clip one more time, and it had a few. It had like four different sounds. Is that?
I heard one earlier in the clip, but these two.
Well, I picked up the main two, but I think like
Play the main two again, just so at least so the audience can hear it one more time, and we'll be quiet.
No problem. I'll play a little bit before that. It's leading up to it's about 30 seconds.
Sweetness, and then it's just so delicious, especially when it's ripe, and especially when it's sweet, and going down, your stomach. Just you'll never know unless you taste it for yourself. You have to taste the Lord for yourself. You have to allow the Lord to come into your heart.
No.
Holy shit!
No,
Oh
that
shit! Excuse my shit
I was
language.
thinking, maybe I'll check their church out.
And mind you, when he played that, it was at the church.
Yeah, I was at a pulpit.
Yeah. So when he played it for us, I
played on the church sound system.
He played on the church sound system. I wasn't expecting that. So my arms and my hair.
Yeah.
My hair on my arms.
The arms of my.
I'm so freaked out about it.
I've seen some Middle Eastern women like that too. Wow, right? I gotta go change my pants. Now we're gonna have Laura and David Lamb back again to share more stories. I have lots of stories lined up, so stay tuned for more episodes. I'm your host with My GhostCast, signing off.